was a paramedic and I was at work, I went into anaphylaxis and I was like, I will not shit myself in front of all my colleagues. Like the ED stuff that I'm seeing all the time, all of my colleagues, I was like, I know that anaphylaxis is life-threatening, but right now I was like, I'm not doing that. Welcome back to This One Time with Emma Rochelle, and on today's episode I will be telling you about the time that I went into anaphylaxis and ignored the symptoms for about the first 10 to 15 minutes. Now I'm still not back in the studio. I'm on my iPhone at my mum's house because it's getting renovated, so excuse the close-up. Let's just get straight into it. So once upon a time, this one time, when I was a paramedic and I was at work, I went into anaphylaxis out of nowhere. I've never had an allergic reaction before. I've never been allergic to anything. I've never even had a rash. And probably why I ignored the symptoms to begin with. But I think if I wasn't at work, I probably would have ignored them even longer and gone into like far more dangerous territory, because I let it go until we were like 0 to 100. So we'd been like a rare time back at the depot after like a busy morning, and I was having a phone call and I was just eating some like morning tea. I think I was actually on the phone to hubby, and I was sitting outside at the bench, and it was a warm day, but I was just kind of on the phone, and while I was talking to him, I was like, oh gosh, my hands are really itchy. And I noticed they were kind of like red and blotchy. And I was just kind of scratching them, and then finished up on the phone call because he was at work too. And I was like, oh, my back's a bit itchy. So I was kind of scratching my back. I stayed out there for a bit, and I was like, you know what, maybe it's just a bit hot. It's the heat. So I went inside, kind of put my stuff down, and then I was like, my hands and back are really itchy. I'll just go into the bathroom. And the light wasn't great anyway, but it was a very old bathroom. But I've gone in there and I was like, oh, maybe I'll take my shirt off. I'll have a look in the mirror, like lock the door, because it's like a unisex bathroom. It's only that one, like think of like an old bathroom in a house. And I've taken my shirt off and my back's all red, like quite rashy. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Maybe it's just the sun. So I put my shirt back on, walk out the bathroom. I'm still scratching my hands. And I'm like, these are so itchy. I was like, am I allergic to something? Has something bitten me? Gone back in the bathroom and I'm like, oh, my legs are itchy now. Like, just feeling quite itchy at all. And this has now been at least 5 minutes. We're possibly approaching, like I'm standing there just scratching up a storm. Back in the bathroom, I take my shirt off again. And I was like, oh, see, I'm quite heavily tattooed. I'm like, is that my tattoos? And I'm like, oh, I'm quite red, like on my back and my hands. And I feel like on my arms now. And then I'm like staring in the mirror and I'm like, does my face look puffy? Like I'm kind of just like moving my face, like do my eyes look puffy? And I'm like, no, you're being dramatic, don't be silly. I'm like, you're just like wigging out. Maybe you're allergic to something, but like it's being psychological now. I'm gaslighting the hell out of myself. Would I ever talk to a patient like this? Absolutely not. Like, you don't feel good? Like, yep. No, I'm like, don't be dramatic to myself. So I like take my shirt back off. I went to put it back on, and then I took it back off, and it's on and off like 10 times. And I'm kind of looking, and then realize I'm getting really itchy all over now. So I've undone my pants, and I'm like, oh, it's on my legs now. So we're easily at the 10-minute mark now. And then I'm like staring at my face in the mirror, and I'm like, oh, I think it's puffy. And I'm like, didn't feel like my throat was like closing over, but I'm like, I'm swallowing. And I'm like, oh, it's a bit, no, maybe like it feels a bit funny. And then suddenly my mouth starts going tingly, my tongue, and I'm like, okay, that's not normal. My mouth shouldn't be tingly. I shouldn't be this itchy. It's now evident the red rash is like welted everywhere and I'm so itchy. So I walk into like the living room where my partner was and like the other crews, and me and my partner were both like fairly newly made up to like paramedics. So because you've got like your ambulance officer and your paramedic, and I was like, I don't want to be dramatic, like I'm at work. So we're probably 10-15 minute mark now. And I've walked in, I was like, hey, does my face look a bit puffy to you? And she looked at me and she was like, what's happened? And I was like, oh, I'm just so itchy suddenly. And then my mouth is like tingly, but I can't tell if my face is puffy. And she just looked at me and was like, get in the fucking van. So I'm like, all right, I'll grabbed my stuff, and she's like, leave your stuff. And I was like, well, we might get a job after. She's like, get in the van. So I get in the van, and I go to the van. I go to get into the front passenger seat, and she was like, what are you doing? Like, get on the stretcher. And I was like, oh, like, look, I figured if you maybe just drive me to the hospital. Very lucky the depot we were at was like 5 minutes from the hospital. We weren't far. I was like, probably just need an antihistamine or something. And she was like, Emma, get in the back of the van. Then she's called another crew, and she's like, Emma's gone into anaphylaxis. And I was like, I think I'm fine. And by this stage, my mouth is really tingly. I don't feel good. So I was like, fine, I'll lay on the stretcher for a bit. And I get in there, and the other crew have come out, and the guy is just like, holy shit. And I was like, I don't think it's that bad. I think within like a minute or two of asking my partner if I looked funny, I had adrenaline like jabbed in the side of my arm, and she was like, we're going to hospital now, like we're going. So we're on our way to hospital. They didn't need to go like priority 1 or anything. Like I was fine, but I was going downhill quite quickly. But the crew that took me were also like, it didn't matter. Anyway, so next thing, he's trying to cannulate me. And now I am like the worst patient ever. I'm like, I'm so itchy. Like I just need to take my clothes off. I'm trying to take my boots off and my socks. I'm just scratching the shit out of myself. And I'm like, I need to take my shirt off. Like I just want to scratch. Like nothing is helping. And then next thing, I'm like, he's just got the cannula in, and I'm like, I'm gonna be sick. Like I need to be sick. But then I'd sit up, and I was like, I feel really dizzy. I don't feel good. I need to lay back. And I was like, no, I'm gonna be sick. I'm gonna be sick. Like I need a sick bag. I then get a bag just in time and proceed to throw up my entire stomach contents. So we're almost at hospital, and I ended up getting some on Danzatron, and they'd said, did your throat feel like it's closing over? And I think in hindsight, like I said no, but I knew that it was scratchy, it was hard to swallow, something was wrong. So then we're getting closer to hospital, and I'm like, I need another sick bag. Like I'm gonna be sick again, throwing up more of my stomach contents. And we are pulling into the emergency department, and now I'm in full uniform, and like anaphylaxis is anaphylaxis. There's nothing you can do about it. And I was like, I need to go to the toilet. I need to go to the toilet right now. And the paramedic driving us was like, no, like you need to like stay here. Like if you're going to wet yourself, you wet yourself on the stretcher like everyone else. And I was like, I will not shit myself in front of all my colleagues. Like the ED staff that I'm seeing all the time, all of my colleagues. I was like, I know that anaphylaxis is life-threatening, but right now I was like, I'm not doing that. So we get in, and they hadn't even lowered the stretcher, and I've just like sprinted like 5 to 10 meters to the bathroom. That's kind of happened. They're like, she's in anaphylaxis, so they've probably seen me running down the hallway. They've gone to get like the bed in like the main like resus room for me, and they're like, where's she going? And I've just like screamed down the hallway like I'm going to the toilet. Like no one is making me shit myself in front of everyone. And I don't care when other people do it. I absolutely do not. It happens when it's medical. There's nothing you can do about it. But that was all I could think about in that time. Now, I get to the toilet, and I've locked the door. I had another sick bag with me. I am on the toilet. I'm still vomiting. And the paramedic that drove us in, she knocks on the door. This was not my partner. She's very old school, been around a very long time, like very lovely. And she's like, let me in. And I'm like, no. And she's like, let me in. So I'm like, fine. I'm like pants down, jump off the toilet. She comes in. I'm still like vomiting. It's coming out of me. I'm like, my eyes are puffy. I'm like, I know my blood pressure's down because I don't feel good. I'm like leaning on the wall. And she starts undressing me. She's like, we need to get you into a hospital gown. We need to get you into resus. And I was like, I was being very dramatic. I was like, please just let me die here. Like, I cannot get off the toilet. Like, I cannot stop it coming out of me. I can't stop vomiting. Like, I'm a mess. I'm like head to toe, red, hives, swollen face. And she's like, we need to get you changed. So she's in this cubicle, like, smell and all, undressing me while I'm sitting on the toilet, just praying for everything to end. Like, I had never been through anything like this. I knew it would be awful, but oh my God, the level of understanding I had for like patients afterwards. So I'm like, okay, we're good. I've stopped both ends. All right, hospital gowns on me, let's go. We open it up, I take a few steps, I get to like pretty much where like the resus room is, and I was like, nah, sprinted back to the toilet. And again, I can hear they're like, where's she going? And I'm like, I'm not finished. And she comes back in with me and she's like, we've got to get you in the bed. And I'm just like leaning on the wall, like, I don't want to go there, like this just won't stop. So anyway, I shortly after finished back up, she helps me to the bed. I'm back in the bed. I've probably stuffed around for a good 10 minutes at this stage, just like on the toilet, like when I probably needed treatment, but maybe even 15 minutes. I was not in good shape. So I get into like the bed and then it's like all systems go. I'm getting jabbed with things left, right and center and like being monitored and whatnot. So I think it was like another at least 20 minutes or so before like the vomit, like the nausea and that stopped. Like I was still in the bed, and then but I was so itchy still. But it was kind of once I got into the bed, everything calmed down pretty quickly. Everything kind of then kicked in pretty quickly, and I was finally starting to feel a lot better. And by this stage, like I'd like family and whatnot had been contacted and whatnot. And because I'd had the adrenaline, like I was showing that I was responding, but I had to be monitored for another 6 hours after the adrenaline in case whatever it was came back. And so, you know, obviously I'm going through like all the questions and stuff, and I'm like, I can't think what would have caused this. I had a normal morning tea. I'd had some vitamins, which we'll get to that later. But they were all things I'd had before. Like nothing was out of the ordinary. There was no bites, no stings. I don't remember anything. So once they're all happy with everything, after like an hour or two, I get moved to the short stay. Now, everyone originally knew that like I was a paramedic. And I'm not saying from there that I was judged, but I'm pretty sure I was judged. So I get moved to like the different area, which is basically just for monitoring and whatnot. And, you know, hours are ticking by and I'm still like waist down hives. I'm so itchy. We're now at like the 3 hour mark, 4 hour mark post event. And obviously I'm not in uniform now. I'm in a gown and I'm telling the nurses, I'm like, I'm so itchy. Like I want to tear my skin off. Like, and they're like, that can happen. And I'm like, is there anything I can do? By this stage, I've also asked like several times, can hubby get a chair? Because he's just been standing there chilling in the corner, like once he kind of came to make sure I was okay. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll try, we'll get back to you, we're very busy. And then I think it was like hour 3 or 4, maybe even 4, I was like, I need someone to help me or something. Like I'm so itchy, like I cannot stop. In the end, another doctor ended up coming in that knew everything about what had gone on in there, because I think even though they'd been handover with the nurses, it sounded like they didn't really know like the extent of what had happened in like the resus bay. And then the doctor came straight out and she was like, oh my God, I can't believe like this is like what you're dealing with right now. She just ended up giving me more adrenaline and that just cleared it right up. Like I think I'd had one in the ambulance, they had another one in the resus, and then like a lot of steroids and antihistamines and stuff as well. And then she just gave me this other one, and it was only like a 0.3 dose, not a 0.5 dose. So like an EpiPen dose, obviously paramedics give a higher dose. And within the next hour, it cleared up. And I was like, oh my gosh, like even if it had been more antihistamines or something, like why couldn't anyone do this sooner? Like I was like begging for help. I just wanted to shred my skin off. And then because I'd ended up with the extra adrenaline, I had to wait more time because it's like from your dose of adrenaline or whatever. And then it gets to like handover stage. It's like later in the afternoon and they were like, you know, handing over to the staff and etc. And it was like, oh, you know, blah, 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 year old female. She was at a party this morning when she consumed something and suddenly had symptoms like onset of anaphylaxis. And now they're outside my door. And I was like, just letting you know, I was not at a party. I was at work as a paramedic, and anaphylaxis came on, and we don't know if it was something that I ate or vitamins that I took. And there was like 3-4 people out there, and they all just stopped and looked at me and were like, oh, and then were like flicking through the paper. And I'm like, I don't know if someone's writing was messy, if it got misinterpreted, how going from being a paramedic at work became being at a party at like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, Wednesday morning, whatever day it was. And then how that would matter at that stage, because, you know, anaphylaxis was anaphylaxis. Is that why no one got me anything when I was asking for it? Like, I don't think people are drug seeking adrenaline. I could be wrong. I don't know. Actually, no, I lie. I did have one patient that did fake anaphylaxis for adrenaline, but that's a different story. She actually wanted pain relief after that. So I'll tell that story one day. But anyways, and then it kind of just went from there, and I was just chilling about and waiting to go home, and then no one would kind of tell me if I could go home. I knew they were short staffed, but I was just going around in circles being like, how much longer do I need to stay, yada yada yada. And then I wasn't really getting anywhere. Like, they were kind of like, oh, you can go home, but you'll need to follow up with someone. And I was like, who? Like, do I need to do anything or anything? And they were like, oh, no. So didn't get a lot of info at this stage. I was like, I'm going to go home. I'm sick of this. So I took my leads and cannula off, and I just said, I'm going home now. I'll come back if it comes back. Habib's driving me home. And obviously I had my clothes, and I put my uniform back on to leave. And as I've gone to leave, I was like, oh, just so you know, I'm like self-discharging. And everyone was just like, oh, you are a paramedic. And I was like, did you think I lied before when I said I was a paramedic? It was very strange. I don't know if it was the tattoos. I don't know if it was because I'd never had anaphylaxis or allergies before, but and I'm just going by my experience, I definitely felt the shift from how I was treated in resus to how I was then treated when I was being monitored and whatnot. So following that, I had to go and see the doctor and get a referral to an immunologist to do some testing. And, you know, you ever want a well-paying gig, $600 for a 15-minute appointment. And I had no conclusion and no results. So I went in there and told him about what happened, and we did some allergy testing. And, you know, nothing really came back. But I did explain, you know, the food I've always eaten, and the vitamins. And one of the vitamins was the Armour-Force, which is quite popular amongst like a lot of frontline, just kind of like a multivitamin and whatnot. And he was like, oh, there's echinacea in Armour-Force. A lot of people are allergic to that. And I was like, but I'd had it before. Like, this was maybe the second or third time round. Like, I'd had it, take it for a few weeks. I'm terrible at taking vitamins. I'd had it before, and I was probably back to taking it for about a week. And he goes, sometimes it can just come on. Like, echinacea is a plant, it's quite common, and a lot of people have shown, like, become anaphylactic from it. And then he goes, oh, I've got a vial for it. And he goes to test it, and the vial's empty, like bone dry. And he's like, oh, it's empty. He goes, I think my colleague's got some in his room, but he's with someone. He's like, oh, I can try add some saline to it and see if we can get some remnants. And so we add some saline to the bone dry empty vial. We do the thing, and there's no reaction. And I'm like, okay, well, like, and he goes, oh, do you have it with you? And I was like, oh yeah, I did. I brought it with me. So then he's like, oh, we could try and like crush it, I think. And I was like, okay. So then he took a tablet, crushed it, mixed that with saline, put it on, and there was no reaction. And I was like, does this mean it's not? Like, it's not the Armour-Force that caused the anaphylaxis? And he goes, well, I mean, it could be that it's just like too diluted. Obviously, like, you've ingested it. We probably actually need the vial of it to like find out if you are like anaphylactic. And I was like, so do I need to come back, or should? And he's like, oh, well, my client's with someone else. And he's like, so you know what, just avoid Armour-Force, just don't take it. And yeah, go from there. And I was like, okay. So $600 for inconclusive results probably was the Armour-Force. we'll never know, because I'm obviously not going to take it again. And the other vitamins that I had like, so everything other than the Arm Force, I had since reconsumed, like one at a time, as a little bit of trial and error, like when Harvey was home, of course, to make sure just in case. And there was no reaction. So I guess by process of elimination, it probably was the Arm Force, but we'll truly never know. So I am supposed to carry an EpiPen on me, but I don't know, how often am I coming into contact with echinacea or Arm Force? So I only really do when I go away, which, yeah, it's, you know, when I went to Kununurra and when I go camping and whatnot, but in day-to-day life, I don't carry it on me because it's kind of just annoying, which I know is silly, but like the fact that I'm not technically allergic to anything that we know of. So I've never had anything since, no anaphylaxis, but what I would say is my body has never been the same since. Whether some people believe in it, some people don't, like being like seeing a naturopath and they're looking into like mast cell activation syndrome, I just seem to have histamine releases to a lot of things I never used to. I got through my pregnancy okay, but it almost feels like that was all pre-Hunter. A couple years before, whatever happened then, whether it was that or I don't know, the pregnancy, over the years, everything has just slowly gotten worse. So I ended up over the last year or two having these like asthma type symptoms, but actually seems to be like a histamine flare, where like, you know, steroids have helped it, antihistamines have helped it. So I take daily antihistamines and nightly antihistamines. I'm on like a double dose, because I began getting symptoms whenever I drank alcohol, even if I had one or two drinks, whether it was wine or straight spirits, just seemed to release histamine. This like cough that felt like I couldn't breathe or get enough air in, like my throat got a bit scratchy, but like from the cough. And then when I was investigated for whether it was asthma, because I was getting this like real exhalation wheeze, they were like, well, it's not asthma because it's only like when you cough. And then they told me it was kind of psychological, but I realized a medication that I had been taking when everything got worse, where I had needed salbutamol and Atrovent at that time and the steroids, it actually all coincided with a med I started. So when I stopped this med, I was taking antihistamines on it and saw a little bit of relief, but when I stopped this med as well as taking the antihistamines, I saw a massive relief. Like I was basically having these reactions to even smoke and dust and cleaning products, which I never had before. So I was suddenly, over the last probably going up to 1 or 2 years now, I was suddenly needing Ventolin and steroids, but it seemed to be these things that never used to trigger this response now were. And I'd end up with like, you know, would slowly come on, and then within like 12 hours was looking like I'd had a botched filler job. Like my eyes were puffy, lips puffy, cheeks and everything. So I think I kind of just very slowly got worse after that period, and then had to make a lot of lifestyle changes. So on top of cutting out anything that is like inflammatory, also cutting out anything that actually like releases histamine, plus having the twice daily antihistamines, has really helped as well. So whether the anaphylaxis was related to whatever has been going on lately, or, you know, it really just does feel like it's all downhill from 30. But yeah, that is the time I went into anaphylaxis. I think I probably wouldn't gaslight myself so much next time, and would probably do something about the symptoms, but hopefully it does never happen again. And again, not that it ever mattered if a patient ever did it to me, but I am grateful to say that I didn't shit myself on a stretcher in front of my colleagues. Grateful for that. The one that was undressing me on the toilet, I feel like she doesn't really count. She was a godsend. She was an absolute lifesaver. She was like lifesaver. She was so lovely. Yeah, very grateful for her, and grateful again, touch wood, I've got a wood dining table, that it hopefully never does happen again. But yeah, I guess I am wanting to open up the platform. So if you have a funny work story, send it in so I can share it, so I'm not alone. I'm looking forward to hopefully hearing some other stories that have happened to people. But that is it for February, this one time with Emma Rochelle. So until next month, I suppose.